Mishnah. Morning, Boker Tov, Masechet Kiddushin Daf Samachta Amud Aleph. The Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Rabbi Tarfon Omer, says Rabbi Tarfon, Yecholin mamzerin litaher. That means sometimes you have a mamzer. You could be metaher oto. Even though mamzer, you could be metaher oto. So, what is mamzer? Let me continue.
No, he wasn't there. I think his face.
Ketzad. What is the case? Yeah. He said, Mamzer shenasa shivcha havlad eved. When you have, right, a mamzer that he comes and he gets married to a shivcha, the child is an eved. Yeah. We have a mamzer and we have an eved. So we have a shivcha, we have everyone, right? Shichrero. So now what comes and he says, he's going to be meshachrer. Yeah, nimtza ben chorim. Now what happens is that the child becomes a ben chorim. What? No mamzer. He's ben chorim.
Why?
Rabbi Eliezer comes and he says, "Hareze even mamzer." No, I disagree. This is an even mamzer, and that is the shita of Rabbi Eliezer. So it says the Gemara. Let's see. Who we have a question. Rabbi Tarfon lechatchila kaman or b'diavad kaman? Meaning, when Rabbi Tarfon comes and he says that you could be metaher the mamzer, is this a din lechatchila? Meaning, you find out that there's a mamzer, just tell him, you know what, do me a favor, get married to shivcha, the child's an eved, then free the eved, and now he's a ben chorim. Should you do that lechatchila? Or, listen, if it already happened, but the avad, so then this is what's going to happen. So Tashema, so they're going to try to bring a proof. Amrulo le Rabbi Tarfon, right? They told Rabbi Tarfon, tiharta te zecharim. You only purified the males. Why? Because the male could get married to the shivcha, right? And he could actually come and say, right, that he's an Evekinani, that he's mutar b'shivcha, and then he's going to get married to a shivcha. Lo tiyarta ta nekevot. But what about if it's a nekeva mamzeret? Right? That's going to be the first question. Number two also, via marta lechatchila kaman. If you're going to tell me even lechatchila, mamzeret nami tinsav lavda. So mamzeret also could get married to an eved lechatchila, and then letayret zara. So we don't need all these things. So what's the difference between a man and a woman? So answers the Gemara, eved and lochais. Eved is not mityaches after his father, and therefore his son is not mityaches after him. And therefore, if you're going to get married a mamzeret to an eved, the child is not of the eved, but rather of the mother. And therefore the child is still a mamzer. So that's why by the mamzeret to an eved, it doesn't help. It only helps the mamzer to a shivcha. Okay? That's the only way, yes. So now we're going to try to bring a proof. Yeah? You know the Balach Sanya of Rabbi Simlai, he was a mamzer. The Elmaleh, so Rabbi Simlai told him, if I would be magdim otcha, which means if I would have known you before you would have gotten married, I would have given you an etzah to purify your child. You're going to tell me it's a din lechatchila, so then that's fine. If you're going to tell me it's b'diavad, so what's going on here? What's he going to tell him to do then? So just remember, it comes out that it sounds like it's a din lechatchila here. So says the Gemara, he said, what is it? No. You know what I would have told him to do? Go steal. And by you stealing, you're going to become sold as an Eved Ivri. Is an Eved Ivri allowed to get married to a Shivcha?
Eved Ivri.
Everyone's on their phones. I don't know if they're going to understand.
Why not?
Huh?
Why not? Should be yes.
Should be yes. You say why not? Should be yes. The Torah mefureshet. The Torah says, right, that an Eved Ivri, when he goes into a master, the master gives him a shivcha kananit. However, though, those children and the wife stays by the master, doesn't go by him. So it's mefurash in the Torah. It's not why not. Probably it's a Torah. The Bible says it. Parashat Mishpatim. Yeah. So in Parashat Mishpatim it says, right, that we're talking about. That what happens is when an Eved Ivri comes into the house of the master comes and is able to give him a shivcha kananit. So he would have given him an etzah that I would have come and I would have told you, you know what, go get married, go steal something. they're going to sell you as an Eved Ivri. Now you're allowed to get married to a Shivcha Kenani. Once you get married to a Shivcha Kenani, the child is going to be what? It's going to become purified. Because now the child is going to be not a mamzer anymore. That's what I would have told you. So says the Gemara. נכון. נכון, ואז מה? No, because a Shivcha Kenanit, when he comes and he frees him, he becomes a pure Jew. Obviously, he's going to free him. And when he frees him, he becomes 100% pure. There's no more anymore mamzerut. Says the Gemara, Uvishne der Bisimlai Eved Ivri Miava. Says the Gemara, I don't even understand what you're talking about. We're talking about Rabbi Simlai. Rabbi Simlai, they had Eved Ivris during the time? They had Eved Ivris?
No.
They didn't have Eved Ivris. Meaning the entire concept was, right? No, there was no more Eved Ivri. He says, why? Why? Right? If you give me 3 seconds to explain, I'll say it. Thank you. The Amar more says, En Eved Ivri noheg, ela bizman sheyovel noheg. Eved Ivri only applies when there's Yovel. Because remember, Eved Ivri goes out after Sheshanim. If he doesn't go out after Sheshanim, he's basically during the Shemitah, then he's going to go out during Yovel. Eved Ivri only applies when there's going to be a din of Yovel. If there's no Yovel, there's no Eved Ivri. So therefore, since we know that Bizman Hazeh, there's no Yovel, so there's no Eved Ivri. So what was the Etzah? Right? What was the Etzah for them to give him? Right? What was the Etzah? So says the Gemara, but rather it comes to teach you that Rabbi Tafon was the Chatchila coming in telling you this. That means basically a mamzer could get married to a shivcha, and therefore he says that's what it means nothing to do with Eved Ivri. Even to get married to Chatchila with a shivcha, he would have told him, get married to a shivcha, and this is what's going to happen. Shema mina. Okay, and Amar Rabbi Yehuda ben Shmuel says in Shmuel, the halacha is like Rabbi Tafon. So there is one way to come and to purify the mamzerim. Obviously nowadays that we don't have shivcha kenani, this also doesn't apply. But once upon a time you did have, right, such a concept as well. Okay? What? Because it was only when everybody was in Eretz Yisrael. If everybody was not in Yisrael, there's no Yovel. Says the Mishnah. Eliezer says, Hareze Eved Mamzer. Says the Eved Mamzer. Amar Rabbi Elazar, says Rabbi Elazar, my Tamad Rabbi Elazar. What's the reasoning of Rabbi Elazar? The Amar Kra, the Pasuk says, right? It says, Gam Dora Siri, lo yavo lo. What does it mean lo? Halach achar psulo. What does it mean? Afilu im bo tzad mamzerut, ela mitzad shel Abba, lo yavo lo diro Siri bikal Hashem. Umikan she'af nasa shivcha, ze lo zeh. Which means, I don't understand. Mamzerut, right? It comes out of the Eved is mitzad imo kemoto. So therefore he's mamzer mitzad aviv. Meaning when it says Gam Dora Siri lo yavo lo, lo is you always go after the psul. No, not that. You go after the psul. No Eved. One more time. Right? When it says, right, that it goes after the psul. The psul is the one that's the defected. Here, a mamzer is always defected. So if the mamzer is always defected, right? So therefore, obviously, we're going to get to her. It doesn't matter whether it's the husband, the Abba, or Ima, right? So he comes and he says, Rabbanan, and according to the Rabbanan, right, which is again the Chachamim, which they argue on Rabbi Eliezer, Hahu b'Yisrael shenamsa mamzeret. They were talking about a case of Yisrael that got married to mamzeret. Sal kadaita chamina, I would have thought to say lemishpechotam levet avotam ketem, which means that since it goes to mishpechotam, that we're always going after Aviv, right? And therefore, right, since the Abba of this Vlad is kasheru, because he's not a mamzer, so therefore there's no problem. So therefore the word lo comes to take it out and say that the Vlad is still a mamzer, because we go after the pagum, and therefore this is only going to be if the mother was a bat chorin, obviously, but a mamzer that gets married to a shivcha, havlad eved kimota and a mamzer. Rabbi Eliezer, but according to Shtat Rabbi Eliezer, lav afagav dichtiv is not because even though it's written in mishpuchtam levetotam ata lo apke. Hachanami afagav dichtiv even though it's written Aisha viladea tiyela dunea ata lo apke, which means the word lo is taking him out, and therefore to do the psul mamzerut, the vlad is not going to be exactly like it, but rather since the father is a mamzer, he's also going to be a mamzer. So for Rabbanan, but according to the rabbis, kol vlad b'mei shivcha kananit kevlad b'mei be'emadam. He says no. Any child which is in the stomach of the shivcha kananit is like a child in the stomach of an animal, and therefore it's not going to be mityaches bichlal after the father, and therefore there's no law to be posel the father, because basically since there's no yipus bichlal, so there's nothing. There's nothing. Remember, we already learned yesterday's daf, the second daf that we did, that a goya or a shivcha kananit, the children are after them because there's no yichus for the father. Right? That means somebody comes with a goya and he has a child. It's not his child. It's the goya's child. Somebody has a child with a shivcha kananit. Right? It's not his child. It's a shivcha's child. Right? It's a slave. So therefore, that's the same halacha that we're just mentioning until here. Hadran alach haomer. Yeah? Fine. So we're going to start a new perek. This is perek Revi, the fourth chapter. The fourth chapter is going to speak about yuchasim. We're going to speak about genealogy. This is a very, very important perek, right? Because especially that we always come from a very good genealogy from many, many generations backwards, right? And therefore it comes and it says, right? Therefore it comes and it says as follows: Asara yuchasim alu bevavel. Do you know that there were 10 different yuchasim that came up from Bavel? Meaning, from Bavel, when they went to Eretz Israel, right, there were 10 different groups of yuchasim that they went up. You had Kohanim, Levim, Yisraelim. You had Chalalim, right? You had Gerim. You had Charunim, Kananim. You had Mamzerim. You had Netinim, and you had Shtuki Vasufi, right? Which we're going to explain every single one of them. Okay? Now, Kohanei Levi Yisrael mutarim lavo ze bezeh, meaning like this. That means basically in Bavel, you also had everything. You had the cholent, you had the salad. Right, somebody was just speaking about salad. You had everything. You had the Kohanim, the V'im, Yisraelim, but you also had the Mamzerim. You had also the Shtuki. You had the Sufi. You had the Netinim. You had huh? Yeah. So you call it. He says, yeah, okay. So he says like this: Kohanei Levi Yisrael, right? Mutarim lazos. Obviously, the Kohanim Levi Yisraelim, they can get married within each other. There's no problem. Okay. Chazak Baruch. Chalalim, Gerim, v'Charunim. A ger could get married to a halal to a charure, which is a meshuchreret, there's no problem. Why? Because a kohen cannot get married to obviously a halala or a gioret or a shivcha meshuchreret. So that's why you cannot say, right? But that means the kohen cannot get married to all these three people. Okay. Now it says gereh v'charure mamzinim nitine shtuki v'asufe kulam mutarim lavo ze b'zeh. So now a ger, Ben Adam Meshuchrar, Mamzer, Natin, Shtuki, Vasufi, Kulam are permitted to get married within each other. Okay? So he comes and he says that Gedim, Adam Meshuchrar, Mutunim, they're not really Be'emet Kehal Hashem, and therefore it's mutar for a Mamzer and a Natin to get married with a Shtuki or a Sufi, v'chulu v'chulu. Okay. What exactly is these things? Ve'elu hem Shtuki, this is a Shtuki, Kol shu makir et imo, he knows his mother, but he doesn't know his father. Meaning, right, that what happened was that the mother, Zinta, she had a child, and she doesn't know with who. So since she doesn't know with who, right, so therefore when you come and you say, Abba, the mother's mashtikoto. Yeah, why is the mother mashtikoto? Because באמת אולי זה לא אבא. אז מה אתה קורא לבן אדם?
היא יודעת או היא לא יודעת?
לא,
היא גם לא יודעת.
יכול להיות שהיא
יודעת.
גם לא יודעת. בגלל זה נקרא שטוקי. זאת אומרת, הוא רק יודע את אמא שלו. That's it. Okay? Fine. הסופי. What's an הסופי? כל שנאסף מן השוק, ואינו מכיר לא את אביו ולא את אמו. הסופי is נאסף. What does that mean? It's like adopted. What does that mean? They came, they put the child there, וגמרנו.
שמו אותו בשוק, שיקרו.
בדיוק, שמו אותו בשוק, שמו אותו באיזה מקום, ואז שכל אחד יבוא לקחת אותו. זה נקרא הסופי. ולא מכירים לא את אביו ולא את אמו. אבא שאול היה קורא לשטוקי בדוקי. So Abba Shaul used to call a shtuki a beduki, which means you have to check him out. Right? לבדוק אותו. לא שהאימא משתיקה. Right? No. אנחנו רוצים, no, השטוקי, where were you? Abba Shaul would call a shtuki a beduki. Okay? Fine. Says the Gemara, and now we're going to start. Okay? Says the Gemara. Asara yochasim עלו מבבל. There's 10 יוחסים that came up from בבל. מה אידיה דתניא עלו מבבל? ניתני הלכו לארץ ישראל. Why do you have to say that they came up from בבל? Just say that they went to ארץ ישראל. So says the Gemara, מינתא אגב הולכי כמשמען, כי דתניא וקמת ועלית למקום אשר בך לשון אלוקיך, וקמת ועלית ומלמד שבית המקדש גבוה מכל ארץ ישראל, וארץ ישראל גבוה מכל הארצות. It says no. When it says עלו, they went up. It's an aliyah. When you go from Bavel, right, to you're going to Eretz Yisrael, it's called an aliyah. Why is it an aliyah? Because how do you call this? Because Eretz Yisrael is gavoa mikol aratzot, and the Beit Hamikdash is gavoa mikol Eretz Yisrael. Okay, there's a whole question about this. Is it physically or is it spiritually? There's a whole
both, no?
right. There probably is both. We know that Bavel is very low down because it's called Eretz Shinar, which means it's a valley, right? And obviously Eretz Yisrael is more mountainous. So obviously that's 100%. But even without that, it could be that for sure that it was something spiritual.
I go up to Paris.
He comes and he says like this. He says in number 10, right on the bottom, right? He comes and he says like this: the Olam is a kadur, and the center of the world is Eretz Yisrael. And therefore, since it's the center of the world, that's why they came and they said that it's like the highest part in the world. That's going to be number one. But then Maharal comes and he says that you can't say on the kadur that the middle is called it's round. So what does that mean? That's the highest part. What's the part? So the Maharal is the one that it says it's Ruchani. Okay, so what I told you about Ruchniyut is Maharal Miprag. However, though some people say that it's Kipshuto, that Eretz Yisrael be'emet is Gvoa Mishar Aratzot, but the Gemara is talking about Aratzot Ashkinot Eretz Yisrael, which are be'emet Nemuchot Eretz Yisrael. And therefore, if somebody comes to Eretz Yisrael, they're always going up. But obviously, there will be some mountains wherever it is, whether it's in the Alps or other places that are taller. But we're talking about the lands, meaning the land in general, right? Eretz Yisrael is the highest of all the lands, especially the ones around it, that they're always coming up to Eretz Yisrael. So says the Gemara, Bishlama Bet Hamikdash kavo mikol Eretz Yisrael. I understand that the Bet Hamikdash is higher than Eretz Yisrael. Hainu dichtiv, as it says in the pasuk, Samachtet Amubet 69b. Divrei rivo b'sharecha vekamta ve'alita. What does that mean? You have divrei rivo b'sharecha, which are in the sha'arim of Eretz Yisrael, vekamta ve'alita, and go to the Bet Hamikdash. Ela Eretz Yisrael kavo mikol Eretz. How do you know? So it says dichtiv, it says in the pasuk, Lachen הנה ימים באים נאום השם, ולא יאמרו עוד חי השם אשר אללה וניסן בניסן, כי אם חי השם אשר אללה ואשר הביא את זרע בית ישראל מארץ צפון ומכל ארצות אשר הדחתים שם. What does that mean? From the fact that it says HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought them up מכל הארצות לארץ ישראל, because he says, אשר העלה בני ישראל מארץ מצרים, אשר העלה ואשר הביא מארץ צפון ומכל הארצות, everything is אשר העלה. Why is העלה? העלה means aliyah, you're going up. So why is it always written going up? Because Bemet, you're going up. That's what it's called. Aliyah la'aretz, or Aliyah la'regel. So says the Gemara, my idea the Tanya Bavel. So why do you have to mention Bavel? Just say they went up to Eretz Yisrael. So Masechet Rabbi Elazar, Damar Rabbi Elazar, lo ala Ezra bin Bavel, at sha'a sa'a kesolo nikiya v'ala, which means this. Ezra Sofer, before he went up from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, he made it that it's going to be like fine flour, which means he went and he was mevarer all the psulim, all of this, because if not, what happens is people go up and they all think that they're all kosher, right? They all think themselves that they're kosher. So for what happened? So Ezra, before leaving Bavel, he comes and he says, you're a mamzer. You're a natin. You're a shtuki. You're a nasufi. You're a kohen. You're a levi. You're a Yisrael. You're this. What does that mean? He went and he was mevarer the entire Bavel. So when they go up to Eretz Yisrael, everything is already done, and therefore, he said no. So therefore, he comes and he says, so that's why since he did that, it says Alumi Bavel. That means before, not only just Alum Eretz Yisrael, but Alul Eretz Yisrael. It's even from Bavel. From Bavel itself, he already started the cleansing process. So therefore, when they go to Eretz Yisrael, everything's already cleaned. Okay, so that's what Ezra Sofer did before going up to Eretz Yisrael. So Itmar, it was stated, Abaye says, Alu me'alehem tanan. Says, what are you talking about? When it says Alu is mashma that they went on their own. The Rava comes and he says, no, Ha'elum tanan. It says Ha'elum Bavel, which means that he went and he actually divided them against their wills. So again, this is going to be the machloket with Rabbi Elazar. The Amar Rabbi Elazar says in Elazar, Lo Allah Ezra mi Bavel, Ad she'asa kesol nekiya ve'ala. Abaye doesn't hold of Rabbi Elazar. Rava iled Rabbi Elazar. Rava does hold of Rabbi Elazar. So it comes out that there's actually going to be a machloket. Did he actually force all the psulim to go up al kurcham? And therefore, in Bavel, they were already nikiyim, right? From the psulim kesol nekiya, or not? It's a machloket. It's a machloket tanaim that we're saying here. Ibaitema, or if you want, you could explain the machloket another way. The chule alma, that according to everybody, it's lehu de Rabbi Elazar. Everyone holds of Rabbi Elazar that they made, that Ezra came and he made Bavel like solet nikiya. But here, what is the machloka between them? Savar, more savar, afrushe afreshinu. What does it mean, afrushe afreshinu? Ezra, he separated all the psulim, and they knew that they were not going to get mixed up again together. Minafshayu slipu, and then they went up on their own, right? That means, what does that mean? Alu kol psulim atzmam mibavel, in order that they shouldn't know them. So therefore, even though he didn't force them, right? Alu kulam atzmam, they went up on their own. Other people say no, he forced them to go up, which means that according to this, according to everybody, still, right? Nishara bavel kesol nekiya, according to Rabbi Lazar. But did they go up on their own, or did he force them to come up? That's the question, right? Between these two opinions, whether it's going to be Rabbi Lazar or the other opinion. Next, I understand according to the Mandamar that says Alu. Hainu damar Rav Yehuda Mashmuel. That's what Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel. Kol aratzot isa le'eretz Yisrael. All the lands are like an isa to Eretz Yisrael, which means all the different lands you have, it's an isa. You know what an isa is? You have a mixture. So it's a mixture of sulim u'kshirim, right? But usually you have, your water, you have the kemach, you have everything. So he comes in, Eretz Yisrael is much more clean. Eretz Yisrael is an isa leBavel. Eretz Yisrael though was dome to an isa to Bavel, right? Because they were completely clean once Ezra Sofer came and he cleaned them out. But according to the Manda Amar He'elum, that he brought them up Bal Kol Cham, made it Adinu, so they know who's pasul or not. So what's the problem? So why is it that Eretz Yisrael is considered an isa to Bavel? If they came and they forced them up, right? Which means that Ezra Sofer came and he forced them to come up. He knew already exactly who was who. And therefore, when they come to Eretz Yisrael, everyone knows everything was going on. So why is it all of a sudden now that Eretz Yisrael itself is going to be considered like a mixture? Why? No, but why is it a mixture? No, but it was already made solid. It's already made fine flour. Meaning, I know that this guy's a mamzer, and this guy's a kohen, and this guy's a natim, and this guy's a shtuki, and this guy's that.
The notion of who is who.
Yeah, that means that he already did. Meaning that they're not going to get mixed up again. So says the Gemara, they only knew for that generation. The Dara Khani know that, but one generation later they didn't know anymore.
They didn't know.
They didn't know anymore, which means that it was only for one generation that they had it. After that, that's it. So Bishlam and the Mandamar, that's good according to the Mandamar that says Alu, Hainu Dichtiv, that's what it means in the Pasuk. Like Betzem el Anar Ba El Ahava, Vanachve Sham Shosha Yamim Shosha, Vavina Vamu Kohanim, Umine Levi Matzati Sham. What does that mean? It's mashma that Ezra did not know who was going up with him until he checked. Meaning, it's not that he brought everyone up. He didn't know until they actually checked. But according to the Mandamar Helum, Hamizar Zahide. They were very Zahid beforehand to check who's the ones going up. And that's why Savar Ezra, that Be'emet Ben Levi came up with him. So it says the Gemara, even though they were careful with the Psulim, they were careful with all the Psulim that are going to come up, but not with the kosher ones, which means like this. Imagine right now you have people that are coming up. You have Kohanim, Levim, Yisraelim. He wasn't going to check in the people that are kasher. So he didn't realize that he had no B'nai Levim. He had no Levim. Yeah? But who did he check? He checked for what? The Psulim. Because there you do have to check. So therefore that's what they have to start checking, right, much more. Okay? How do we know that they came up with two Eretz Yisrael from Bavel, Kohanim, Levim, Yisraelim? So it says the Pasuk, Vayishu Kohanim veLevim minam Yoshorim Ashorim, right? V'netinim barehem v'chol Yisrael barehem. So therefore, basically, okay, fine. It says that it's mashma. Okay, how could it be that we just said that it wasn't the Levim coming up and it was the Yogdiel? And again, there's a whole question about that, but fine. Says the Gemara, Chale Gere v'Charureh. What about the Chalalim, Gerim, and Mishuchrarim? Chale Minala. The Tanya was learned in right of Yosef, and he says, Gidolah Chazaka, Shneimar, Umibnei HaKohanim, Bnei Chavya, Bnei Klotz, Bnei Barzilai, Shelakach Mimnot, Barzilai, Giladi, Isha, V'yikare al Shemam. Ele Bikshu Ketavam Mityahasim. What does that mean? They were asking the Ketav Yichus of theirs. They loaned in someone, they couldn't find it. What does that mean? Right? They couldn't find it. So therefore they checked. Right, during the time of Shivat Zion and the Yechusim, in order to know who will be met with the Kohanim Aksharim and who are not Chalalim. They go along in a Kohuna, which means that they wanted to find out Be'emet, what's just like what's happening nowadays. Nowadays, there's a lot of Kohanim. We don't know if Be'emet they're Miyuchasim or not Miyuchasim. We have no idea. So he comes and he says, You guys have your chazakah. What were you guys eating? So 2 years, which means you have a how do you call it? You're not allowed to actually come and eat from the Basar Kodesh Mizbeach, but you're allowed to eat from the Kodesh Agvul. Okay? Now the Gemara is going to be a machloket, bring a machloket. If you're allowed to bring up from Truma to Yuchasin, which means if you see somebody eating Truma, is that a proof that he's a Kohen or not? So says the Gemara, according to the Mandamar, Ma'alim Truma leChuyusin, Hani de'achul b'Truma, these guys were eating Truma, atuleskinu. So what? You're going to bring them up. What's going on? So answers the Gemara, Shanahatam, it's different over there. Meaning like this. If you have a regular person that is eating Truma, so I'm going to say, okay, fine, he's a Kohen. The second that I already know that there's Hurai Chizkata, which means the Chazakah, there was already something bad about the Chazakah. That means we're already saying, you know what? Maybe he's not a Kohen. So I don't care, because even if he's going to start eating Truma, that's not a proof that he's a Kohen. There was already Shmuot that maybe he's not a Kohen, even though he's saying he's a Kohen. So, okay, so the fact that he's eating Truma is not a proof. Meaning like this, if everything's kosher and the guy's eating, so then fine. But if you already know that you're hearing is a really kosher, not kosher, even if it's going to have some type of a hashkacha or whatever, you already know, listen, it's not a proof that really be'emet it's kosher, because you already know, this is what's going on.
But there's a chazakah. No, if he's eating
Ella, but rather, my gdola chazakah. What does mean now gdola chazakah? The mikara at the beginning, achul bitruma d'Rabbanan. They were eating truma d'Rabbanan, but then in the vasof they were eating truma d'oraita. That's what it means right over here. Which means that now they were once they came to Eretz Yisrael, they started actually eating right the truma d'oraita, not only just truma d'Rabbanan. If you could answer another answer. Leolam really be'emet hashanami. Also now they're only eating truma d'Rabbanan. And the Tumah Doraita lo chul, they weren't eating Tumah Doraita. Now, when do you bring up from Tumah to Yuchasin? Midoraita. From Midorabanan, no. Meaning only if you eat Tumah Doraita do I bring you up from eating the Tumah that you're a good Kohen. But if you're just eating Tumah Dorabanan, it's not a proof be'emet that you're a Kohen.
I don't know the difference between Tumah Dorabanan and Tumah Doraita.
Well, there's differences in all types of Tumah. There's Tumah, which is Doraita, which is going to be different types of produce. It says here, the Chiyuv of Trumot u'Ma'asorot min Torah is only something that grew in Eretz Yisrael. There's a machloket. What about nowadays, first of all? Because nowadays it could be that it's only in the Rabbanan. That's what the Rambam is posek. The Truma Bizman Hazeh the Rabbanan, even in Eretz Yisrael. And then also it depends what it was actually. Right? Depends what type of fruits and vegetables. Depends if it's going to be outside of Israel and so it's over. So if it's not going to be Truma Doraita or Truma Rabbanan. So says the Gemara Yachri. So my Gdola Chazaka. What do you mean Gdola Chazaka? At the beginning, there was no Truma Doraita that you could make a Gzira, but at the end, even though you could make a Gzira, Mishum Truma Doraita, still with Rabbanan Achul, Doraita Lochul, they were eating the Rabbanan, meaning like this. I would have thought to say, you know what, maybe why don't we make a decree? Don't let them eat Truma at all. Because if you're going to come and you're going to start telling them, you know what, you could eat Truma, maybe they're going to eat Truma Doraita, maybe it becomes very complicated, right? You're going to start eating this, not eating that. It's very, very complicated. Yeah, so therefore they come and say, "You would have made a gezerah." We don't do a chazakah. We don't make this gezerah. So says the Gemara, "V'aktiv it's written v'yomer tirshata lahem asher lo yochal b'kodesh kodashim." The kodesh kodashim udu lo yochal. Hakol midel. It says one second, only in kodesh kodashim they cannot eat, but everything else they could eat. So says the Gemara, no, this is what it means in the pasuk. Hachi kama lo mid the mikre kodesh. You're not allowed to eat something which is going to be called a kodesh. Velo yochal mid the mikre kodashim. They're not allowed to eat anything which is called kodashim, which is basically chazeh v'shok v'shlamim. I remember that the thigh, right, the chazeh and the chazeh is the chest area, and the shok of the shlamim, korban shlamim, is called kodesh because that goes to the kohanim. So therefore, you cannot eat nothing which is called kodesh, which is truma, or kadashim, which is basically from the korbanot. So says the Gemara, lo midid mikre kodesh tichtiv v'chol zal lo yochal kodesh. I'm not allowed to eat truma. Velo midid mikre kodeshim, nothing of the chazeh v'shok. But the pasuk says, "Uvat kohen ki tiyeh leishzar." She's not allowed to eat anymore. Hu b'tumat kodeshim lo tochel. More says muram min kodeshim. Talking about something which is like the matanot of the kodeshim, right? Lo tochal, you're not allowed to eat. Okay, Mezat Hashem, we continue on Sunday.